Kamala Harris meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who better to meet with the world's top communist than the failed border czar. The meeting was reportedly centered on Joe Biden's religion, man-made global warming. China says the meeting was strategic and constructive, which means nothing good for the United States came out of it. For more on this, let's bring in our panel. U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander Major Glenn Ignacio, also Newsmax columnist and the executive director for the Iranian Americans for Liberty, Brian Lee Alai. Welcome to you both, folks. Major, let's start with you. Harris was solely focused on climate change on her meeting. Nothing was addressed about the poison of fentanyl coming across the border, courtesy of China. Nothing was addressed about over 1 million Americans who died from the China virus. This isn't good, is it?
No, not at all. And the thing that scared me is that they stated that she was going to be pivotal, about the communication staying open between the U.S. and China. And we've seen that fail activity both of stopping fentanyl, #1 killer in the United States of people right now, and the border is wide open. So she's failed that completely. So it doesn't really build any confidence that this is going to be successful with a great superpower like China.
Yeah, and you know, what good is keeping up communications when the message from the United States is whatever China wants, China gets? I just don't understand what the benefit is for we the people. Brian, I want to go to you. 2 Iranian actresses were arrested for removing their head coverings. They also reportedly supported the anti-government protests there, if you can call what they do over there a government. Has Team Biden taken a moment from their efforts to make Iran a nuclear power to address these clear human rights abuses of women?
They really haven't. They've sent out a bunch of tweets and a bunch of strongly worded statements, but unfortunately, they haven't really done much when it comes to policy or actions to really send a strong message to the mullahs in Tehran. And it's really simple. They should just pivot back to the maximum pressure, maximum sanction campaign that the previous administration had used, and it was working. It's really time for us once and for all to be tough with the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism instead of appeasing them at every single angle. And these 2 women that were just recently detained on Sunday night, you can add them to scores of hundreds of women and thousands of women over the years that have been murdered, censored, and oppressed and kidnapped just for wanting to have basic human rights that so many women here in America and around the world have. So, yeah, Joe Biden's got to get tough with this regime once and for all.
Major, I want to pivot back to the communists, back to China. They're dealing with another China virus outbreak over there. Their totalitarian crackdown is more extensive than before and meeting a lot more resistance this time. What are your sources telling you about China's stability as we are coming toward the end of the year?
Yes, I mean, their control for the virus over there is meant with actually a lot of physical control, violence. There's fighting on the streets. There's people going and getting and dragging people out that have the virus. At the same time, the stability of China is in question because there's a lot of things happening with power issues and fuel issues, coal issues, and negotiation of various coal supplies around the world. They're trying to increase their connection with Australia and trying to warm that. But overall, the stability of China as a whole is really having some issues. So as they look and they flex their muscles for things like Taiwan and the international security standpoint, you really don't see much for them where their infrastructure is falling apart. So it's really interesting as they're focused tremendously on the military, as we see it's almost like North Korea, while their country is really starting to whittle away inside. It's a great question, especially with the human rights violations that are tremendously horrible throughout the country.
No, I'm so happy to see China going down the route the Soviet Union went down. Of course, communists, they wouldn't be communists if they were at all smart. Finally, Brian, to you, the U.S. ambassador to Israel says Biden still wants an Iranian nuke deal. As you know, the original Obama Ayatollah nuke deal made Iran a nuclear power within a decade. Tell the folks out there just how catastrophic a nuclear-armed Iran would be to the world.
Well, it would be beyond catastrophic. This is a regime that's been funding terrorist proxies around the world ever since they took power in 1979. And this is not, listen, a nuclear deal with Tehran is not going to benefit the Iranian people. It's not going to benefit the American people or any of our allies in the Middle East. But this statement from Tom Nides is very confusing because you have everyone else inside of the Biden administration who is signaling that they are not focused on doing a deal. So now we have our quote-unquote man on the ground in Jerusalem saying that there is going to be a deal. It's just one misstep, one bad communication after another from the Biden administration. And I really hope that Tom Nides would come out and forcefully say that maybe he didn't know what he was talking about, because guess who's going to hurt the most, guys, from a nuclear deal? It's not going to be us immediately. It's going to be Israel. Tom Nides is the ambassador to Israel. He's got to wake up.
Yeah, and a Joe Biden administration official not knowing what they're talking about. Gee, who could have ever heard or thought of something like that?
Well, they supply drones to
Brian Live and retired U.S. Oh, well, there you go. Brian Live and retired U.S. Air Force Major General Glenn Ignacio. Happy Thanksgiving to you both, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Coming up, CBS News made a big